Angeles, I was exposed to a lot of cultural and ethnic diversity, which led me to also be exposed to lots of different viewpoints on moral standards of what is right and what is wrong. One of the main reasons I wanted to major in anthropology was because I was so interested in these different viewpoints and what other people viewed as what was morally right and what was morally wrong. My goal today is not to have you questioning what you view as right and wrong, but rather to introduce various perspectives of what different people around the world are thinking about issues that we may think of controversial. And I'll do this by talking about cultural relativism. So cultural relativism is defined as looking at a different culture using that person that you're looking at's own cultural perspective. So essentially erasing all of your own cultural biases and viewpoints and neutralizing the way that you look at someone's culture. So you may think like one practice in a different culture, like wearing the full body hijab, is extremely strange, but this person in in our culture may think that, in this other person's culture may think that wearing only a bikini is extremely strange. So this is kind of an example of them not using cultural relativism because they're not erasing their biases against other cultures. I'll be using cultural relativism today to talk about gender, marriage and kinship, and also communication throughout different cultures. So first off, gender. Today in America, especially, we have a relatively high expectation of equality. While it's not perfect, of course, it is relatively high compared to other parts of the world. Especially in Africa, there is an ongoing practice in, for example, the Maasai tribe of female genital cutting, which essentially is the surgical removal of parts of the clitoris, the labia minora, and the labia majora, which is extremely dangerous, but we view it typically as something that is extremely, extremely oppressive and unheard of, not unheard of, but not extremely oppressive and different, I guess. There are many reasons why people, or why cultures have female genital cutting, but one of the main reasons is surprising. It was surprising to me when I figured it out. It was that it's a beauty standard. And so while there are many different reasons like birth control, insurance of virginity when people are being married, it is one of the main reasons is that it is a beauty standard. According to her short book titled The Case of Female Genital Surgeries, Isabel Gunning says how important it is to view these cultural differences that are culturally challenging to us in a way that will preserve the respect and equality of these various different cultures. To elaborate on the cultural relativism side, we can compare it to what practices in our own culture, like breast implantation or breast enlargement. You can see in this picture she's had ribs removed, and also some people like to tattoo makeup on their faces. In other cultures, people will see this as extremely barbaric and extremely just not what they would consider normal. So it's important, though. Well, Abelie Stewart and Negar Donahue mentioned how it's important to analyze these practices in a way. Abelie Stewart and Negar Donahue described the phenomenon of female conformity to a cultural standard of beauty in their journal, Choosing to Conform, stating that this practice is so common because it is often accompanied by the benefits of being more likable, more desirable, and more trusted, which I thought was surprising. Moving on. Marriage and kinship. So both marriage and kinship are culturally defined. There is not one universal definition for what marriage should be or what kinship is. One of the questionable practices that people in our society view as questionable is polygamy. But when we think of polygamy, we often think of this example from a TV show called Sister Wives. I believe they're in Utah. I'm not sure exactly, but a lot of people think that it's sort of in different areas of the world, but one of the main places it's in is Africa. To quote Miriam Zeitzen in her book Polygamy's Cross-Cultural Analysis, white men see polygamy as an attribute, quote, white men see polygamy as an attribute of primitiveness, and they think that the African cannot really attain civilization unless he has discontinued polygamy and adopted monogamy. So it's important to realize that this view is very ethnocentric, ethnocentrism being the belief that one culture is better than another culture, which is exactly the opposite of cultural relativism. There are many reasons why people have many wives, and I can't go into all of them today, but it is very prevalent. There are many reasons that are prevalent that aren't just to oppress women generally. Kinship is defined as the way we see our relatives, the way we define who our relatives are. In our westernized society, we think of our mom and our dad and their relatives as being our kinship, but in a lot of societies, they have matrilineal kinship systems and patrilineal kinship systems. Matrilineal is shown here in this picture as being only related to the mother's side. People believe that they're only related to their mother's side. An example provided by James Ferris in his book, Some Aspects of Clanship and Descent, shows how the Ashanti tribe in Ghana, the Trobriand Islander tribe in New Guinea, and the Yanomamo in the Amazon rainforest is having a matrilineal kinship system. And while this is different from our own practices, we have to remember that our practices aren't the best way of doing things. There isn't one right way of doing it. Communication. So the way a person speaks in their society is very important because of things called linguistic taboos. Taboos being things that are culturally defined as they're prohibited for many reasons, being it's immoral or it's a behavior that is immoral or impractical to that society. Catherine Allais speaks of the system of naming and the taboo behind it in the Yanomamo that I mentioned earlier. The taboo is that the people within this culture, the Yanomamo culture, are not allowed to say names of people who they are related to or close friends with, especially after they die. It's considered very disrespectful to say these people's names. And so for this reason, they come up with names that are very strange to us, but to them it makes sense that why they name their children these names. Some of these names include translated into English as whisker of a howler monkey and toenail of a sloth. So when you're talking to a person about, when you're talking in a situation, you're rarely ever going to bring up the topic toenail of a sloth. So it's very common that they will name their children things like this. We can compare this and be more culturally relative by comparing it to our taboo of bad words. Not so much in our college years, but in our early childhood and later adult life, we view bad words as being immoral, improper, not what we're supposed to do. So that can be also compared to being taboo. Nonverbal communication, as described in my cultural anthropology textbook, it says it is, quote, a particular body motion or distance, or that it, quote, a particular body motion or distance does not inherently convey a certain message, but only does so because of certain conventions or common understandings. So we believe there are no given definitions of a certain body motion or a certain eye contact. Like when you're eating a banana, it's not considered normal to stare at someone while you're doing that. But it is considered normal to do that, to have eye contact with them while you're in a job interview. So it's important to realize that these practices, these norms that we say are normal in many other cultures. As stated earlier, my goal was not to confuse you about what you should view as right and wrong, but rather to introduce you to a sense of new perspectives on ideas that we think of as inherently wrong or controversial. In an era where people are claiming immigrants are aliens, or the hijab or the niqab is oppressive, and having multiple wives is disgusting or repulsive, it's necessary that we do have a sense of cultural relativism so that we don't disrespect these other cultures.
Meredith, how'd that go?
Not great. I forgot a lot of things I was gonna say, but I cut a lot of the stuff I was gonna say out of my speech right before because when I was practicing earlier, it was like 10 minutes long. I'm sure it went over the mark, but I was trying to be more conversational and not have it scripted, but I think I struggle with that mainly because I forget what I'm trying to say.
Audience, if you could please.
Oops.